Good morning. This is the March 20th, 2018 meeting of the Joint Authority and Canal Board meeting of the New York Power Authority. I'm Eugene Nicandri. I'm the acting chair for today's meeting. I'd like to welcome the members. Trustee Kress is excused. Board Chairman Kamel is participating via video conference and asked me to facilitate the meeting since I'm here. I'd like to welcome Gil, the NYPA staff and Canal staff, and staff participating in person via video. The meeting scheduled under the Open Meetings Law. I would call the joint meeting of the Authority and Canal Corporation to order. Any amendments or changes to the proposed agenda?
No.
Not, I'd ask for a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion's carried. Next item is to conduct an executive session under, it's going to last about 60 minutes, I believe. I would ask for a motion to conduct an executive session under 105F of the Public Officers Law of the State of New York to discuss the financial and credit history of a particular corporation.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We are going into executive session.
Thank you.
To resume in open session, I'd ask for a motion to conclude the executive session and reconvene in open session.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Back in open session, I would just state for the record that no votes were taken during the executive session. It was informational for the board members. Contractors list has been circulated to the trustees. The conflicts have been submitted and have been included in the minutes per the corporate secretary's records. Any member have any additional conflicts to declare that haven't been previously? Not hearing any. I would ask for a motion after everyone's received the consent agenda and the conflicts in regard to those specific items, for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda is approved and adopted. Gil?
Thank you, Judge, and good morning, trustees and staff and the people who are watching our board meeting today from the general public. I will be giving my CEO report. As you know, in our last meeting, I mentioned that we are standing up a digital transformation office as we digitize NYPA and make NYPA the first end-to-end digital utility. That's in process. Daniela Piper, our new vice president and my chief of staff, is leading that team. She is currently building that organization. And the purpose of this organization is to really focus on delivering on the outcomes that we are looking for in our digital strategy, and also that we have uniformity in cross-cutting issues such as our enterprise digital architecture, our governance of the data across our organization, as well as development of various software applications. This is just something that you've seen before, there are 8 work streams or portfolios in our digital strategy, and over time we will report to you the various projects and their status. Again, under each of this digital work stream, it ranges from our workers out in the field all the way to our power plants and our customers. The ISOC we opened the ISOC with you last December 12th. The ISOC is really the way we now are starting to manage our power plants and transmission system. It enables predictive modeling to optimize maintenance. It helps us detect potential outages before they occur, and it also creates a hub where we can co-develop new applications with our partners. Progress to date, we are monitoring all of our power plants. Over 75,000 additional data points expected through our sensor deployment, and we are starting to develop some more sophisticated machine learning and artificial intelligence applications to help us in managing our assets. Right now, we are reading about 26,000 points per minute. We've created 500 digital replicas, or we call digital twins of our assets, and have created 450 use cases since we've opened in December. And I'm happy to report that since our opening, we have already identified through those use cases savings and or avoided costs of over $3 million in our asset management activities. To give you an example, in our power plant in Astoria, Queens, our 500 megawatt power plant, we offer our staff anomalies, detection of anomalies so that they can act on those things. Moving on to the New York Energy Manager, with our customers, we are in the process of digitizing about 11,000 state-owned buildings across New York. And in some cases, we are actually doing much deeper sensor and metering deployment. For example, at SUNY Stony Brook, MTA, Tuskegee Bus Depot, and we are really trying to create those required digital twins or digital replicas of the energy systems of our customers so that we can help them optimize the way they use energy. And when they start installing distributed energy resources, whether they're solar and other types of technology, storage, electric vehicle, etc., that they will have much more flexibility in managing their demand to match their electricity supply needs. So a lot of progress have been we're making here with our New York Energy Manager. As I always report, our overall corporate performance scorecard, we have, really have started in a very, very positive note this year all across our business unit, all across the organization. I'm pleased to report that the team is inspired, team is working hard. You have heard that we are trying to accelerate the implementation of our existing strategic initiatives and across the board. And so we're off to a good start this year. That is my report, and I'm open to your questions.
Anybody have any questions of Gil?
Thank you.
Gil. Risk management, Subigya.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and trustees, senior management of NYPA, and everybody watching the video here today. I'm here to give the Chief Risk Officer's report. I will not go into all the details of these slides. All that I wanted to say to report to you is that we are trying to position risk management as an enabler of the business. Now, what does that mean? What that means is that we are trying to identify the unrewarded risks so that we can mitigate them, so that the company can, a business as a whole, can take on more of the rewarded risks, which we have talked about today. So that's really our goal. Some of the examples are, we just finished implementation of our phase 1 of the energy commodity risk management system. So Trustee McKibben was asking this morning about the duration of some of the hedges we put in our hedging program. we are now able to duration match. We are now able to identify seasonal correlations so that we can design and model a hedging program based on the intelligence that we are, analytical strength we're getting out of these tools. So that's an ongoing thing. So we try to bring in objectivity, neutrality, as well as our analytical strength to help the business. So we have completed the comparative analysis. We have gotten some insights about the health of our cost structure of our assets. We're continuing to do a deep dive on those. And we have also been trying to get embedded in different parts of the business. And Gil has challenged us to go into generation, transmission, and customer success, customer businesses in more deeper way. So that's going to be our goal for 2018. So, any questions? The quick update on the risk assessment plan. We will continue we'll start our annual risk assessment plan in April, and we'll come back to you with our new risk assessment results in July. This time, the focus is going to be more on strategic objectives the company has, including the moonshot and digitization efforts and all that.
Are you sitting in on those discussions involving those future projects and stuff?
Yes, I am definitely sitting in, and my staff is also coming into a variety of strategy discussions. We're also doing business resiliency stress testing as we digitize, as we take on these sort of go on to these uncharted areas. We will be taking on a lot more risks, and the future, as we all know, is very uncertain. So we're trying to do a stress testing of our business resiliency posture. We came to you last year about our business resiliency framework, which has basically 3 pillars. One is the emergency management or crisis management. The other one is incident response and disaster recovery. And the third pillar is the business continuity planning. So we've done tremendous amount of work in all these 3 areas. Now we're saying, okay, let's not just do a gap analysis as to where we stand, but do a more of a scenario analysis in terms of how we see ourselves in future and how prepared we are with regard to our business resiliency. So that's really my report. I'm open to any questions if you have.
Questions?
Just one question that I had around as you look at business resiliency, how does that connect to sort of the stuff that we're also doing around sustainability? Because, that would address, it seems, a similar issue to what you're looking at, and I don't know if you work together on.
We do, and I don't know, Kim, you want to talk about it? We are looking into sustainability from an organizational perspective. Yeah. Sustainability is not going to be strictly a part of the stress testing that we're doing.
It is not already.
It's not planned to be a part of our business resiliency stress testing. But we're making significant efforts push towards sustainability.
Right. So the team right now is working on refreshing the 3-year plan for sustainability. And sustainability, the way we define it, is the impact of the business operations on the community in which we live as well. So we're looking at all functions of business operations, from fleet to waste management to energy consumption, and developing a sustainability plan that will include metrics. With that, I think always comes with an added value of giving you a little bit more risk protection, because you're making sustainable operations, which means you're becoming more self-dependent rather reliant on external resources for business ops.
He stepped down.
So the answer is we're going to come back to you probably in the summer with a 3-year plan, both on sustainability as well as environmental justice program.
So the way we are defining business resiliency here is the ability of the organizations to leap back should a shock occur. That is basically how we're defining business resiliency.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom Carcadoro.
we had a single slide today. Just want to report net income through the end of February was 17 million, which is about 6.5 million ahead of what was budgeted. Again, we're only talking about 2 months now. So some of the primary components of the variance, we had higher margins on our transmission sales, primarily because we're not being when we renegotiate our HTP agreement, starting January 1st, we're not being billed for RTEP charges at this point in time, which was part of the intention of that renegotiation. Now that potentially is subject to, I think, may have already been challenged and maybe, may not. Hopefully that'll stand up in the future, but year to date, that's a significant variance and positive variance in our transmission results.
What's the percentage of the HTP result in that? What share of that number is a result of the?
I think it's at least 3.5 to 4 out of the 4.8. Top of my head. Margins on energy sales, we did have lower margins through the first 2 months, and that was primarily we had lower hydro production. A lot of that, and we also had lower prices on merchant sales. The hydro production, early January, we had icing conditions at Niagara. I think it was a negative variance in our Niagara production of about 4% just in the month of January. February is really right on budget in terms of production, and I think going forward we are still projecting that we're going to be well ahead of budget on our hydro projections. But early year we did have some issues there, so that's about a $4.8 million negative variance on our transmission sales, on our energy sales into the mostly on our merchant sales. Operating expenses, we had some early year. We have some timing differences between our budget and our actual. About a third to a quarter to a third is in our canals. There were some deferrals on vegetation management and some other projects at canals, and also in some of our programs in our CES, the five cities master plans. The MAPS programs, been some delays there. So, basically timing differences. Again, I believe we're projecting to catch up in those areas. So, just 2 months at this point in time. On the non-operating side, we have fixed income portfolio, so market interest rates go up. So we have a paper loss of about $6 million plus on our investment portfolio. Again, that's really just a paper loss. So again, we're at 17 million, and what we had budgeted for the 2 months was about 10.5 million, so 6.5 million ahead of budget.
Any questions?
Okay,
Thanks, Tom.
thank you.
Utility operations, Joe Kessler.
Thank you, Trustee DeCandre. Just want to say hi to John and Chairman in Buffalo, and welcome to the trustees. This is the operations report. Gil touched on this briefly on the digitization efforts. In utility operations, there's a number of areas that we're working on to this path of digitization. Of the 8 work streams that are in this path or workflows, there's 8 primary workflows. There's 3 that really affect directly utility operations. I would say we touch all of them, but the focus areas that we're touching are in asset management, the intelligent grid, and plant and field work. And I'm going to drill into the plant and field work briefly, but just as an overview, in the asset management area, it's really about some of the processes and procedures, having the ISOC and analytics. It's really where the centralized function of what we're doing in the ISOC and data analytics reaches into the organization at the plant site. The intelligent grid is really more toward our investments in some of the capital projects that we're doing. We really want to get more sensors out into the field, get that information back to us. Some places it's very seamless in the senior region. Some of the technology we had in our fossil fuel plants are very seamless here. In other areas, because the plants are older and some of the evolution, what we did in the previous upgrades, we have work to do to get those end devices back in here. So it'll be about the sensor deployment, getting that communications backbone, getting that information back here, and making sure that we're doing the right investments on some of the other products in our transmission LEM in terms of the Marcy static compensator and things like that. And then plant and field work, I'll drill right into that, but there's a lot of upgrades. Really what we want is the visibility in the field, whether it's handhelds, whether it's technology and tools. their operators day to day can work with and have better visibility into the health of their assets. One area that we're kind of fond of and really inspired to work on are the drone program. That's something you're going to see quite a bit from us. It's really going to be, even though the idea originally was to look at some of the enterprise-wide things that would be better for us to give us visibility and diagnostics in the field, what we learned from our experience in Puerto Rico and other places is that just having plain visual on some of these assets is really going to be a help to us. So to expedite this program, we're actually getting 3 really smaller, more versatile drones to give us video and imagery of what we have out in the field, and we're going to keep building this program as we go. What we're learning about it is even though it's well-established technology, there is much behind it in terms of training and getting the certifications that you need to operate these things. And so we're working on those programs right now very aggressively through our transmission group and Dan Herman up in the Clark Energy Center. We do have 2 sophisticated drones in our fleet already. They are in Clark to be used. They're significantly larger payloads for other diagnostic type of cameras and things like that. But we are going to be looking at those simple ones as well to do some of our, even during storm response, I think we're going to have incredible demand for these things.
Are we going to develop our own pilots or going to rent?
We are actually looking at our own pilots. We have people in the queue right now to get trained in March and April to get at least Part 107 certification through FAA to do the unmanned. We have some private pilots that we actually kind of canvassed our organization to see who might be out there. So those people are going to be involved. We're going to have kind of a working group, and we're going to expand that through training and recruitment.
And just to say, I mean, we are the state's
Yep.
training center
Yep.
at Griffith, so
We will be there.
with training and
Yeah.
everything else, obviously.
Yeah, we will be there for sure. Emergency management, obviously, a lot going on between Puerto Rico, but more recently we actually had the nor'easters that we had to respond to, and the timing was just about right, fortunately for most of the utilities, but especially us, where we had to bring some staff back or on a timing of our transition in Puerto Rico. We were here to address the nor'easters. So through the leadership of Sal Rojas, JT Flick, and Joan Thomas in our organization, they really did a great job making sure we had the right assets in the right place. We had to reach out pretty far on these nor'easters. Outside of our normal area to get the resources that we need, because many of the utilities, like I said, were just in the process of starting to reallocate resources in Puerto Rico to some of the smaller areas like Caguas, which that don't usually or don't typically meet the kind of assets that we have to support. It's really the contract support there that helps there, and I'll talk about that because I do have one item for the board to review on that issue. But generally speaking, we did a great job getting back here. We had some of our own staff in the emergency operating centers regionally. Our own Kim Harriman was down in Sullivan County, and Gil and his team, Paul Tartaglia, were up in Westchester County. But really a real good effort. Obviously, there's some oversight on it right now, but I think in the aggregate, it was a pretty good response, at least from us. For the benefit of the board, these types of storms generally don't affect our own assets. We're usually leaning out and supporting the other utilities. There is a chance that a transmission line could be affected, but because of the nature of the transmission lines and the robustness around those, we're really more concerned about ice storms and those types of things for our own assets. Generation facilities in the senior region are pretty robust right now. We learned a lot from Sandy. We put a lot of investment into them. So when these kinds of storms hit, it's usually us supporting some sub-transmission and distribution. And hopefully this week we won't have to do that. So everybody kind of blow east and get the southern nor'easter to go that way. So with that, though, we did have a contract. So what happens is now that we're back from Puerto Rico, the contingency that has to move to the Caguas area, again, like I said, has more of a distribution bent to it. So this item here is really in support of keeping the New York State contingency up. What we did is leverage the contract through LIPA to get the competitive bidding that's required to get staff into the Puerto Rico area. And so we have roughly 100 FTEs that we would need to full-time equivalent employees of the distribution contractor going down there through Hoagland Electric, Bill Hoagland's group. Again, this was competitively bid. Let me get the right language here, make sure I got everything right. So the New York contingency, NYPA New York Utilities had great success in restoring San Juan and has been asked to maintain a workforce of about 200 to 250 line crews and personnel and incident management staff to assist the distribution restoration in the hard-hit area surrounding San Juan. So again, this is in the aggregate. These are not 250 people under the NYPA banner, but the New York State contingency. This ask is for the 100 that would support that 250. To maintain the portion remaining in workforce, NYPA contracted with Hoagland Electric via a LIPA existing contract to provide distribution restoration service resources. NYPA will provide up to 100 line personnel to maintain the requested workforce on the island. And these are reimbursement of these costs will be sought through the existing emergency management assistant compact. We call it EMAC. That's why, because I can't pronounce it all. Request from Puerto Rico. So that mechanism is really from PREPA, the local utility, through their PREMA, which is their emergency management group, state to state to New York government, and then to the New York Power Authority, and back and forth. So that's how that transaction requests, and it's being reimbursable through that mechanism.
So the reimbursement is from Puerto Rico, not the federal government. It's through an
It's
agreement.
through FEMA, but the oversight, the actual arrangement is through that alignment. So it's a FEMA reimbursement, but it's not like a typical mutual aid. It's actually state to state.
Got it. Okay.
And Joe? Hey,
Yes,
Joe?
John.
So it's 100 employees for 6 weeks?
So 6 weeks on the outside, Chairman. What we're looking to do is we're following the industry right now. They have an incident command structure there on the island that is kind of dictating the demand of where it is. They're in the area of Caguas right now, which is very difficult to get into. So adding more bodies does not significantly add to productivity in those areas. So they're right-sizing that right now. That's what we're really trying to do here. So we're a component of even a broader response that's even outside the electric utility sector that's down there. So I would say what we're looking for is it's outside is going to be the 6 weeks.
Well, I'm just doing simple math. 100 employees for the 15 million. It's 150,000 per employee for 6 weeks. Am I doing
That's
the right math?
approximately right. That's approximately right.
Which seems to be a pretty significant lift, but you're saying that includes everything and anything?
Correct. So it's not just the FTEs. What Hoagland provides is also the equipment, the mobilization, and all the tools and lodging and everything else that's associated with this. So it's not just payroll.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
So the ask from the trustees on this item is to approve, because it exceeds the threshold for our own EAP, is to approve award a $15 million contract to Hoagland, $3 million which was awarded on interim approval through Gil Quinones, the president and CEO.
And the plan, just to add more detail, the utilities from the U.S. mainland working in Puerto Rico right now are planning to work there until about the first week of April. At that point in time, we are projecting that Puerto Rico will have reached 95% restoration. And so at that point, the utilities will transfer the remaining work to PREPA, the utility in Puerto Rico, and their contractors. They have contractors as well, to finish the last 5%. So that's the plan. This item really is to bridge the gap between now and that first week of April.
And I'm happy
that
to
gets
answer any
them
more
back-
questions about. I'm sorry, John.
That gets them back to a sustainable state, Gil. I mean, this isn't just the Band-Aids. I mean, they've cured enough of the root cause and root problem that there's a sustainable infrastructure now?
Well, the FEMA reimbursement that enabled this restoration is under what's the so-called the Stafford Act, which is a federal law. And the utilities basically restored the system to its pre-storm condition. So the goal of Puerto Rico will be to request and receive additional appropriations from Washington, D.C. to harden and to modernize their grid. This sort of arrangement happened, there's a model for it. The Long Island Power Authority during Sandy the Long Island Power Authority received $700 million to immediately restore the power after Sandy. And then there was a second appropriation for $730 million that LIPA has been deploying to harden and modernize their grid. So the goal of Puerto Rico is to hopefully, in for their case, to follow the LIPA model and to receive additional funds from the federal government, from FEMA and HUD, to be able to modernize and harden the grid. But right now, the goal of the U.S. utility is really immediate restoration of power.
Got it, thank you.
Need a resolution?
Yeah, I need a vote on that.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, the resolution's approved.
Thank you. No.
All done then.
Yes.
You're on.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, trustees. This is the Commercial Operations Report. As Tom mentioned earlier, the first 2 months of the year were very challenging for commercial operations, primarily due to the weather. While customer usage was as expected, was as expected, our generation was down about 12%. This was due primarily to the use of water for ice flushing at our hydro facilities. By order of magnitude, we used more water to flush in January than we did in the past 3 winters combined. Moving over to the bottom right, the bomb cyclones in January rose fuel prices 37% over our projection. By order of magnitude, fuel prices in January of 18 were 150% higher than they were in January of 2017. So January and February were a little bit abnormal for us. First 2 months, we expect all of these measures to moderate over the year and to come within budget. The electric prices in the higher right corner, they are higher due to the increase in fuel, and we also expect them to moderate over the year. On a project and business development front, our team will be submitting the Moses Adirondack rebuild project that you've been briefed on to approval to the PSC shortly. We are targeting the end of March. We're putting together a lot of documents and preparing for that filing. It may roll into the first week of April, but we expect it to be in late March or the first week of April. On the economic development front, LIPA continues to award megawatts for job and capital commitments, and Keith will get into that later in the agenda. On the energy efficiency front, we came out fast at the beginning of the year. As you can see, we're 39% over our target for the January and February. The team was able to accelerate construction at a number of our facilities at SUNY, CUNY, and the New York City DEP. In addition, there was timing of invoice payment between 17 and 18 and larger invoices falling in January and February than we expected. We expect that to also moderate over the year. With higher customer investments, NYPA net revenues also rise to a corresponding level. And our operating expenses were about as we predicted for January and February. In advance of the discussion on the next procurement item, I'd like to watch a short clip on Governor Cuomo's Smart Street Lighting New York program.
The street lighting initiative is an important component of Governor Cuomo's Reforming the Energy Vision. We are building a statewide energy system that is clean, resilient, and affordable for all New Yorkers. The goal of the governor's program is to replace at least 500,000 streetlights with new LED technology by 2025. It has the potential to reduce energy consumption statewide by 482 gigawatt hours annually. That's the equivalent of nearly 45,000 households.
We have a great working relationship with the New York State Power Authority. This project was a turnkey project for us, which meant it was handled start to finish by the Power Authority, which was great for my town, and it's saving us over $10 million over the next 10 years.
The LED street lighting program was for us an opportunity to save energy, save money, do the right thing by the environment, reduce maintenance costs. In addition to the cleaner, whiter light, the light is much more directional, so it's doing what it's supposed to do. It lights the street. It's a great opportunity to kind of clean up your system, save money for the taxpayers, provide a better product, and you do all of it without putting any additional burden on your own staff.
The governor challenged our state to lead the nation in finding a solution to reducing our imprint, our footprint, but also finding ways to conserve and to be smarter about our energy usage.
Energy efficiency is critically important to our city. It also allows us to save money. It also allows us to ensure that we're investing in the economy of the future.
New York Power Authority plans to play a major role in the implementation of LED streetlights across the state of New York.
So in your packets is an authorization to award an energy-efficient street lighting contract. It is recommended that 2 bulk LED street lighting materials contracts be awarded to the most qualified low bidders, Philips Lighting of North America and Rexel USA. The 2 contracts will share a pool of $10 million, which was previously authorized by the trustees for these types of programs. We're envisioning a 2-year contract with a 1-year option to extend. And it should be noted that the costs of these contracts will be recovered from our program participants. So this item is submitted for your approval.
Any questions? I have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved and seconded.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Keith Hayes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, trustees, judge, and all in attendance today. On February 14th, the Northern New York Power Proceeds Allocation Board, or Proceeds Board, recommended that one business be awarded fund benefits totaling $330,000. The related project, which you received in your board books, is tied to the creation of 60 jobs and over $1.2 million in project investments. The trustees are asked to approve this recommendation, and to date, $400,000 in fund benefit awards have been approved, and there is currently about $2.5 million available, of which approximately $440,000 is dedicated to energy-related projects. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank the judge for his commitment to the North Country and Gil for his unfailing leadership in support of economic development in the North Country. This item is submitted for your, for your approval.
Any questions of Keith? They have a motion to approve the allocation.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Keith?
Thank you. Also, in the January board meeting, I brought to you a recommendation for a preservation power allocation to the North Country Data Center. Since then, there have been some new developments with the applicant and, quite frankly, within the state. Specifically, the Public Service Commission announced last week approval of a new electricity rate for cryptocurrency mining businesses, who are also known as high-density loads. We've been working with other state agencies and would ask the trustees to approve a temporary moratorium on awarding economic development power to these types of businesses until such time that staff can develop the appropriate policy and procedures that are consistent with a unified state position.
Any questions? Need a resolution?
No.
No? Okay. You're welcome.
We have time for
Do it.
Transmission Life Extension and Modernization Program update. Tricia Lombardi, Vice President, Project Management.
Good afternoon, Chairman, trustees, NYPA staff, Canal staff. My name is Patricia Lombardi. I'm here to present a high-level overview of NYPA's transmission system, background and update on the TLEM program, and lastly, I'm just going to touch on the cost recovery mechanism for this work. So in 2012, board approval was received to embark on the TLEM program, which was established to maintain availability, safety, and reliability of NYPA's transmission system, which comprises a significant portion of the transmission backbone in New York State. At the time, a majority of the equipment had exceeded its service life, and several significant failures were experienced, including an oil-filled circuit breaker at St. Lawrence and 2 auto transformers at Messina substation. As such, we completed assessments on our assets, and a comprehensive program was developed at the time. At the time, the cost was estimated at $726 million, with a range of -10% to +20%, or $650 to $870 million. Due to the size, complexity, cost, and lengthy duration of the program, TLEM is being managed in a phased approach, and it's broken down into roughly 20 projects, comprising upgrades to the authority's switchyards, substations, and structures, refurbishment or replacement of power equipment, including auto transformers, reactors, submarine cables, breakers, relays, and switches, and strengthening or replacing infrastructure, including towers and associated hardware. The estimated schedule at the time was roughly 13 years, spanning from 2012 through 2025. So just to set the stage here a little bit for the rest of the presentation, given the large magnitude and again the lengthy duration of this program and so many assets being affected, we need to really regularly assess the work scope, especially given with all the changes that have occurred since the program's inception. So this includes making sure we continue to align with our corporate digital and asset management strategies. There's also a number of projects. Joe had mentioned sensor deployment, where we're deploying an enterprise-wide, large-scale sensors across our equipment, so making sure the TLEM scope dovetails well with that program. We've also had a number of interconnections into our system since this program's inception, one being Jericho Rise in the northern region, a wind developer tied into our Willis substation, and the recently approved Rochester Area Reliability Project, which will have some effect on our western New York transmission assets. And additionally, with the approval of the Moses Adirondack replacement, there will be some scope impact of the St. Lawrence switchyard as well as Adirondack substation, so we're making sure that we continue to adapt and be agile with the scope. And again, here, as with any project or program, we need to continue to apply lessons learned internally, what we learn with industry experts and other utilities. Continuing again just to adapt the scope to new technologies, again, giving the lengthy duration of this. And we like to try to pilot some new technologies where we can and have that flexibility. Working to ensure that we can realize those benefits that we had assumed by making these large investments. And also just continue to look for potential changes and opportunities to accelerate and enhance the program. So we're going to get into a little bit more specifics about TLEM, but first, just to set the stage very quickly, just a high-level overview of the major transmission system backbone within the state. NYPA's major transmission lines are highlighted in blue, and our major facilities outlined in orange, with St. Lawrence and multiple remote substations to the north, Niagara to the west, CEC and BG in central region, and then heading south with several feeders connecting Westchester, Long Island, and New York City. NYPA owns and operates approximately 1,400 circuit miles of AC transmission lines, ranging in voltage from 115, 230, 345, and 765 kV, and we transcend all of the TO service areas in the state. So while all the other TOs have defined service areas, NYPA operates in all. So continuing just to dive a little bit deeper in terms of power flow. So again, just a quick, very simplified pictorial here of how the power gets from us to customers. So power typically for us comes out of our generating stations at 13.8 kV. And then the voltage gets stepped up by the generator step-up transformers and continues on to our transmission lines. So it says 400 kV here. Again, it's just a pictorial. I mentioned our voltage ranges earlier. And the voltage needs to be stepped up so it can be carried long distances. The transmission lines then enter a substation where the voltage is then stepped down, so it can ultimately be connected to distribution lines and then ultimately be carried to a customer at a much lower voltage. So continuing to dive a little bit deeper, this time into the specific components of a typical substation, which really comprises the majority of work under TLEM. So again, here, very simple pictorial of a substation, and we're just going to talk about 3 high-level components here: disconnect switches, circuit breakers, and auto transformers. So the lines you see here on the left, sorry, I don't think there's a laser, but the lines on the left here would be your typical transmission system entering a substation. So the first major piece of equipment that would be encountered would be the disconnect switch. These switches can be motor operated or manual. Motor operated MODs, you're going to see a reference to that later in the next slide or two. And these are really just electrical switches used to open and isolate electric circuits. And here in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a typical disconnect switch on NYPA circuit. And this picture was taken from a Messina substation up in northern New York.
What's that white stuff on the ground?
Should be familiar to you, Judge. The next component would be the circuit breaker. Circuit breakers are automatic devices that stop the flow of current in the electric circuit as a safety measure. So the majority of breakers being replaced under the TLEM are original oil-filled circuit breakers, which we're replacing with gas-filled SF6 breakers. And the new breakers are outfitted with additional monitoring tools, sensoring, and here is a photo. Again, typical breaker on our system. This one, again, is up at Messina Sub. They're all taken the same day. So. And lastly here is the auto transformer, electrical device that transforms the power from one voltage to another. So again, in this case, it would be stepping down the transformer, the voltage, so it could then exit the substation to what would be a distribution system. And last photo here, again, typical auto on our system. So now getting a little more to specifics about TLEM to date. Through February of this year, we've expended approximately $260 million across all projects under the program. This includes replacement of 9 auto transformers and 5 refurbishments, ranging in voltage from 115 to 765, replacement of 30 breakers, again in that same voltage class, and refurbishment of 12 reactors, both at Messina Substation and at the Marcy Switchyard in central New York. We've replaced the 4 submarine cables that comprise the PB20 circuit under Lake Champlain, installed 2 new cap banks, painted in excess of 450 towers, and some other ancillary equipment, replaced over 100 relays, 50 disconnects and MODs, and 5 bus sections. So this slide just shows a graph depicting where we are in terms of cost and schedule to date. Solid orange line represents the original plan as approved by the board, assuming a cash flow that has an estimated completion of 7/26, culminating in 2025. The 2 dashed orange lines show the range that I mentioned earlier, the -10 to the +20%. The blue line shows the current planned completion for the program based on actuals to date and our projected forecasts. So you'll see we are slightly over where we originally planned, but still within that range that we had set early on. In terms of schedule, at this time, work at CEC, BG, and Niagara are on track to be completed within the original schedule or very there close to. However, there's some work up in the northern region, in particular the relay cutovers for the 230 kV yard, as part of the breaker and relay replacement program, which have been descoped from TLEM. The design for that project was really done about 10 years ago now, being that it's 2018. So with technology advances and just advancements in the industry, it doesn't make sense to continue the program as we've been doing it. So the team is considering some alternatives, new technology, some other engineering solutions, and that plan will be presented to the board at a later date. So just quickly here, we're going to look ahead to 2018 at each of the facilities. In the western region at Niagara, we'll be replacing 6 breakers, 15 switches, and painting over 300 towers. Up at St. Lawrence, 2 breaker replacements, 6 switches, and upgrading the station service at Plattsburgh Substation. BG, replacing 7 MODs. And lastly, here at CEC, we'll be refurbishing 2 autos and replacing 2 breakers, one 765 and one 345. And the last item I just wanted to touch here quickly was the cost recovery mechanism for this work. So due to the significant increase in investment in our transmission system, NYPA filed with FERC in 2016 to convert our stated rate to a formula rate so that NYPA would be able to recover its costs annually. The settlement was approved by FERC in January 17, and as a result, all the current planned capital work under TLEM is recoverable through the NYPA Transmission Adjustment Charge, more commonly known as NTAC. It's just a very beneficial settlement for NYPA, being given all the investments that we're planning over these years. And just a little more background, you can see, for comparison purposes, a before and after on the right-hand side of your screen. Under the old stated rate, any capital spend we wanted to do over $5 million, we needed a specific vote, a unanimous consent by the TOs. And now we can spend up to $90 million for repair replacement projects per year, or $40 million for new projects, without going for a separate vote for the TOs. And that's all I have for you today, so thank you very much. I would just like to extend to the trustees, if you're ever in the area, I'd like a tour of the facilities. There's a lot of work going on all the time, so if you're interested in the area, we're always open to a visit. And I'll take any questions.
Oh, great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Going to board committee reports, the Finance Committee report, Trustee McGibbon.
Okay, I'll start it out. In executive session of the Finance Committee, the CFO and Treasurer reported on the financial and credit history of a particular corporation. The committee, we voted to recommend to the full board release of funds in support of the residential discount program that was created in connection with the Recharge New York Power Program. We also voted to recommend to the board approval of the release of funds in support of the ongoing operating and capital expenses of the New York State Canal Corporation. With that, I think we'll have, I'll do them as separate motions on those two fund releases. The first, I'll move the Finance Committee recommendation that the trustees approve the release of $30 million in funds during 2018 in support of the monthly residential consumer discount program created in connection with the Recharge New York Power Program. If I could have a motion?
Second.
No, I need
Moved.
a motion. Second, great. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Great, motion carried. The second motion I'd like to see is to move the Finance Committee recommendation that the trustees authorize the release of an additional up to $20.5 million in funding for the New York State Canal Corporation, or Canal Corporation, to support the operations of the canal in the calendar year of 2018. If I could get a motion?
Motion. Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Great, motion carried. Thank you. That's the extent of my report.
Thank you. The Governance Committee report, the committee received the 2017 Procurement and Real Estate Activities Report and associated guidelines for such activities, as well as Ethics and Compliance Report. The committee also considered and adopted a policy and procedure update and the Board of Directors evaluation. For the Audit Committee, the committee conducted an executive session to discuss the financial and credit history of a particular corporation, approved minutes received and an internal audit update, and reviewed the 2017 financial report and the 2017 annual audit of financial statements. That completes the committee reports, I believe, and I would recognize the CEO and President, Gil Quiones.
Thank you, Judge. This is a point of personal privilege. I just want to inform the board and NYPA staff that Paul Belnick, who's our Senior Vice President of Commercial Operation, will be retiring April 3rd in a few days. Paul has been with us for 27 years, 27 very productive and interesting years. He's really been, I would say, Mr. Energy Efficiency at NYPA. starting with all of our customers from Southeast New York to all of our upstate customers. Really has been the engine, started all of that for NYPA, has provided the inspiration and the sweat and blood and tears and growing that business to where it is now, and has provided the foundation for us to pursue our customer energy solutions business. So, Paul, we want to thank you. There is a formal board resolution that we have. We're not going to read through all of it, but if you can come up and be acknowledged by the board and specifically by Judge Nicandri, who's here presiding our meeting today.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Paul, congratulations, and thank you for your service.
They make you come in and do a presentation in order to retire.
That's the requirement.
Thank you very much.
I believe that concludes the meeting. So a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved twice and seconded once. All those in favor signify.
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We're in adjournment. Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.